The teacher thought she was smarter than everyone. Maya Carter was the quietest girl in her class. Her teachers often assumed she wasn't smart enough. Shadow. But what no one knew, mind sharper than anyone in that school. One Monday morning, the classroom buzzed with noise as their new history teacher. She was known for her strictness and her arrogance. The moment she saw Maya sitting silently in the corner, her eyes narrowed. Mrs. Thompson began asking rapid-fire questions about American history. Finally, her gaze fell on Maya. You haven't spoken a word all week. The entire class turned to look at Maya. She froze for a second, her heart pounding, but she stood up anyway. Let's see what you know, Miss Carter. Maya looked down for a second. James Madison and John Jay. Lucky guess, she said coldly. 1863, Maya answered instantly. But she wasn't ready to back down. Fine, she said, her tone turning sharper. Without hesitation, Maya repeated it word for word. It gives Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Even the class topper, Jason, but instead of praising Maya, Mrs. Thompson's face twisted with anger. She shouted, People like you always try to cheat the system. She quietly said, No, ma'am, until one quiet girl proved her wrong in front of the whole school. She never raised her hand, never talked back, and never seemed to fit in. While her classmates called her the silent, was that Maya had a photographic memory and an IQ far above genius level. Mrs. Thompson walked in. She loved attention, and she hated being questioned. To her, Maya looked like another lazy student trying to hide behind silence. One by one, students stumbled through their answers. You, she said sharply, pointing her finger. Maybe it's time you prove you actually belong in my class. She didn't like attention. Especially not this kind. Mrs. Thompson smirked. Tell me who wrote the Federalist Papers. Then calmly replied, Alexander Hamilton. The teacher blinked, slightly surprised. All right then. What year was the Emancipation Proclamation signed? The room went silent. Mrs. Thompson's smile faded. Her pride wouldn't allow her to lose in front of her students. Tell me what Article Y, Section 8 of the Constitution covers, as if she had just read it seconds ago. And excises, to pay debts? The entire class stared in disbelief. Who always bragged about being the smartest, was speechless. Don't act clever with me. You must have memorized that to show off. Maya's lips trembled, but she didn't argue. I just remember things easily. The teacher thought she was smarter than everyone, until one quiet girl proved her wrong in front of the whole school. Maya Carter was the quietest girl in her class. She never raised her hand, never talked back, and never seemed to fit in. Her teachers often assumed she wasn't smart enough, while her classmates called her the silent, shadow. But what no one knew was that Maya had a mind sharper than anyone in that school, a photographic memory and an IQ far above genius level. One Monday morning, the classroom buzzed with noise as their new history teacher, Mrs. Thompson, walked in. She was known for her strictness and her arrogance. She loved attention, and she hated being questioned. The moment she saw Maya sitting silently in the corner, her eyes narrowed. To her, Maya looked like another lazy student trying to hide behind silence. Mrs. Thompson began asking rapid-fire questions about American history. One by one, students stumbled through their answers. Finally, her gaze fell on Maya. You, she said sharply, pointing her finger. You haven't spoken a word all week. Maybe it's time you prove you actually belong in my class. The entire class turned to look at Maya. She froze for a second, her heart pounding. She didn't like attention, especially not this kind. But she stood up anyway. Mrs. Thompson smirked. Let's see what you know, Miss Carter. Tell me who wrote the Federalist Papers. Maya looked down for a second, then calmly replied, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. The teacher blinked, slightly surprised. "Lucky guess," she said coldly. "All right, then. What year was the Emancipation Proclamation signed?" 1863, Maya answered instantly. The room went silent. Mrs. Thompson's smile faded. But she wasn't ready to back down. Her pride wouldn't allow her to lose in front of her students. "Fine," she said, her tone turning sharper. "Tell me what Article Y, Section 8 of the Constitution covers." Without hesitation, Maya repeated it word for word, as if she had just read it seconds ago. "It gives Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay debts, and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States." The entire class stared in disbelief. Even the class topper, Jason, who always bragged about being the smartest, was speechless. But instead of praising Maya, Mrs. Thompson's face twisted with anger. "Don't act clever with me," she shouted. "You must have memorized that to show off. People like you always try to cheat the system." Maya's lips trembled, but she didn't argue. She quietly said, "No, ma'am. I just remember things easily." That only made the teacher angrier. "Don't lie to me. Do you think you're smarter than your teacher? Than everyone else here?" The class fell completely silent. No one dared to move. Maya just stood there, her eyes glistening, but her voice calm. "No, ma'am. I just study differently." Mrs. Thompson slammed a book on her desk. "Sit down before I send you to the principal's office. Next time, try learning respect before you learn facts." Maya slowly sat back down, holding back her tears. The room was filled with awkward silence. Even the students who laughed at her before now looked uncomfortable. Something about the way she stayed calm, even after being humiliated, made them realize there was more to her than anyone had seen. When the bell rang, Mrs. Thompson left the room without another word. But as she walked down the hallway, she couldn't shake off one thought. How did that girl know every answer? Perfectly? There was no hesitation, no mistake, just flawless precision. Meanwhile, Maya quietly gathered her books. One of her classmates, Sarah, walked up to her and whispered, "Hey, that was incredible. How did you remember all that?" Maya smiled faintly. "I don't know, I just see something once, and it stays." That night, Mrs. Thompson couldn't sleep. She opened her laptop and searched the school's student records. When she typed Maya Carter, the file that appeared left her stunned. Under academic testing, it showed an IQ score of 162, higher than Einstein. Her eyes widened. For the first time, the arrogant teacher who prided herself on knowing everything realized she might have just shouted at a genius. The following day, the classroom felt heavier than usual. Whispers filled the air as students glanced at Maya. Mrs. Thompson walked in, her usual confident swagger replaced with a subtle tension. She tried to act normal, but the memory of yesterday's incident gnawed at her. How could a quiet, invisible student answer questions so flawlessly? As the lesson began, Mrs. Thompson decided to put Maya to the ultimate test, determined to prove that the girl's performance yesterday was a fluke. She pulled out a complex historical document, one she was certain no student could analyze correctly on the spot. "Miss Carter," she said sharply, her voice carrying across the room, "explain the significance of this document in front of the class. I want details, dates, names, and context." Maya's eyes met the teacher's, calm but focused. She took a deep breath and began, her voice steady and precise. She recited not only the main points of the document, but also connected it to historical events, legal precedents, and even modern-day implications. Every reference was exact, every date correct, every nuance analyzed with razor-sharp accuracy. The classroom went silent. Every student's mouth hung open. Even the class clown, who had been mocking Maya the previous week, stared in disbelief. They realized something remarkable. Maya wasn't just smart. She was a living encyclopedia. Mrs. Thompson's face went pale. Her jaw tightened. That's impossible," she whispered under her breath, almost to herself. She tried to regain control. "Sit down, Miss Carter. That's enough for today." But it wasn't enough. Maya's quiet confidence, combined with her flawless recall, was impossible to ignore. Students began murmuring among themselves. Some whispered, "How does she remember all this?" Others simply stared, unsure whether to clap or just gape in awe. After class, a few brave students approached Maya. "How did you know all that?" asked Sarah, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya smiled gently. "I just remember things differently," she replied. "I notice details that most people overlook, and once I see something, it sticks." Word spread quickly through the school. By lunch, even teachers were talking about Maya's extraordinary abilities. Some were skeptical. Others were genuinely amazed. Mrs. Thompson, however, felt a storm brewing inside her. Pride, embarrassment, and confusion battled within her mind. Later that week, the school organized a student debate, inviting students to showcase their knowledge. Mrs. Thompson, still determined to assert authority, insisted that Maya participate, expecting her to falter under pressure. As the debate began, Maya stood before the audience. Questions flew at her. Rapid, tricky, layered questions designed to trip her up. She answered each one with remarkable clarity, weaving in historical context, logical reasoning, and personal insight. Each answer was precise, articulate, and beyond the expectations of everyone present. Finally, the debate judge asked a particularly challenging question, one that had never been answered correctly in the school's history competitions. Maya paused for a moment, a faint smile crossing her lips, and delivered the answer flawlessly. The room erupted in stunned applause. Every student, every teacher, every parent in the audience could feel the weight of her intellect. Mrs. Thompson, standing at the side, felt her face burn with shame. She realized that her earlier arrogance, her public humiliation, and her attempts to belittle Maya had backfired spectacularly. This quiet, seemingly ordinary student had completely outshone her. After the event, Mrs. Thompson approached Maya quietly. I underestimated you," she admitted, her voice subdued. "I let my pride blind me." "You are extraordinary," Maya nodded politely. "Thank you, ma'am. I hope this shows that respect and kindness go further than arrogance." The story of that day spread through the town and even made local news. Maya became a symbol, proof that intelligence cannot be judged by appearances, and that arrogance and prejudice can never silence true talent. From that day on, Mrs. Thompson never shouted at a student again. She learned a lesson the hard way. Never underestimate someone based on their silence, their race, or the way they sit quietly in a corner. Maya continued to excel, not just academically, but as a leader among her peers. She helped classmates, tutored struggling students, and quietly inspired others to embrace their unique abilities. Her genius was no longer a secret. It became a force that transformed her school and everyone around her. And as for Mrs. Thompson, every time she glanced at Maya in class, she remembered the moment she had shouted in public, and the realization struck her anew. Intelligence, respect, and true talent are often hidden where you least expect them. In the end, Maya's silence had never been weakness. It had been her power all along. And in the face of arrogance, that power had shined brighter than anyone could imagine.